active out there tonight.
Here we are. It's Saturday night / Sunday morning as we click over another day on the calendar, reach over, rip it off as we head into the last half of the last weekend of July. I'm Warren Madden. You're watching the Weather Channel and you've tuned in on one more time. You're here, I'm here. Let's talk about the weather. How about that? While I try and get my tongue untied and actually talking here. We have some wet weather as we go through the overnight into the morning hours across the state of Kansas. If you're driving along I-70, it's going to be a wet go of it as we have showers and thunderstorms that'll be providing some rain and potentially causing some flooding. Flood watches out here, flash flood watches out across the I-70 corridor. That's our trouble spot. You can see those thunderstorms starting to pop up here across the flatlands of Kansas. We're also seeing some showers and storms here into the lower Mississippi River Valley as well. This whole area in here, we've got a front stalled out. And it is acting as the get-together point for all this moisture. We have the slightly cooler air to the north, the still very hot and very humid air to the south, and where these things are bumping into each other. That is the frontal boundary. And when the air bumps into each other, the air masses bump into each other, they have to go somewhere, so they go up, rising motion, clouds, rain. So anywhere here from the lower Mississippi River Valley, coming over in toward the central and southern plains, and then reaching over into the Colorado and Rockies, heading over into the Wasatch, could see some rain. And also some rain here into the Carolina coastline as we have the other end of that front reaching up around the Outer Banks. These areas also under the gun for some strong thunderstorms. The other place we're concerned about some strong thunderstorms, especially as we go into the later part of this period, getting more toward noon on Sunday, is here in northern Minnesota. Why? A new cold front coming down out of Canada, and that new cold front could trigger off some strong thunderstorms, places like the Arrowhead of Minnesota, reaching down into, by the afternoon, into northeastern South Dakota. We'll look at that in your forecast in a minute. But first, let's check out where you might be running into some foggy travel, where you might have to deal with reduced visibility. Use those low beams if you're heading out before sunrise here in the Appalachians, coming along I-40 or I-75, coming down I-95 here in the Carolinas into southeastern Virginia, could be running into some fog, and along I-80 here through central Nebraska. No windy travel expected, so we can dispense with this map. That's good news. Let's talk about temperatures. Let's talk temperatures. Yep, another hot one. Another day over 100 in Dallas, but where that front was, where the clouds were, boy, was it cooler. Look at this. Across southern Nebraska, 20 degrees below your average for this time of the year. Only made it up to 68 degrees in Grand Island on Saturday. 71 in Kansas City. You come a little farther south over to Oklahoma City, 106. What a difference those clouds made. Speaking of hot, not only was Texas hot, but the interior west was hot as well. Medford, 99 degrees. 98 in Spokane, 96 in Boise. So you get away from the coast and very hot indeed. That was Saturday. What about Sunday? Let's answer that question. Here's the low temperatures, and as you can see, very nice indeed, comfortable across the northeast into the Great Lakes. And as you head south into the Ohio River Valley, dropping into the 60s, good night to toss open the window, air the house out a little bit, but still very muggy and uncomfortable here south of our front into Texas, over into the Carolina coast. There's the front right there. It isn't going anywhere. It's stuck in place. This high is going to slide eastward, and it's going to provide the Great Lakes and New England with a very nice day indeed, it looks like, as we go into the day on your Sunday. Here's that other front I was speaking of. This is the new cold front. And as we go into the afternoon, you can see that green blossoming in front of it. Those are the showers and thunderstorms we think will be erupting along that front from around Ely and into Duluth, reaching down perhaps towards St. Cloud and coming over in toward Aberdeen. More showers and storms here along our stationary front from the plains down through the Tennessee River Valley and then reaching up in toward the Outer Banks. No relief for Texas, it looks like, and more scattered showers into the Four Corners. Heaviest amounts of rain will be right along that front with those showers and thunderstorms into Kansas, where you could see over an inch of some of those storms going through. High temperatures, again, you see only the 70s here. That's, again, the fact that the clouds are going to be over you. But you head farther south, and another 100-plus day across much of Texas. This is for Sunday. Let's say you have a business trip coming up here as we go into the last week of July. You want to know what it's going to be like where you're traveling to? Let's find out.
10 before the hour, time for Storm Watch on this Sunday morning. In just a moment, we'll talk about the flooding rain, which continues in parts of Kansas and Missouri, with some areas receiving 3 to 5 inches of rain so far during the nighttime hours. More on that shortly. First, though, the latest on the tropics, and we begin with our hurricane, which of course is in the eastern Pacific. It's Hurricane Darby, and the latest position is 16.3 north, 124.5 west, over 1,000 miles southwest of Cabo San Lucas, which is Baja California. Maximum sustained winds are 105, and the storm is moving off to the west-northwest at 13 miles per hour. The movement, by the way, on Hurricane Darby, taking it now into, or very shortly, into an area where water surface temperatures are in the upper 70s. And farther west, they will continue to cool. So the bottom line is Darby will be moving into an area where conditions, sea surface readings anyway, are hostile for further strengthening. So while it is a well put together hurricane right now, it is expected to weaken pretty quickly over the next 36 to 48 hours. And of course, it's moving out to sea. So at the very most, it's a threat to shipping, which happens to be in the path of Hurricane Darby. Now, let's look at our climatologically favored areas in the month of July, meaning the red zones do not mean, let's begin with this, that conditions are favorable in these areas now. It just simply means that if a system were to organize, these would be the likely areas of development. As we look to the satellite picture this morning, actually very little going on. Gulf of Mexico, Caribbean. We have an interesting feature that will be affecting Florida, but no significant organization is expected with that, perhaps just some beneficial rain. Look at the islands out here, the windwards and the leewards, the Hispaniola area, very quiet. Out through the tropical South Atlantic, a couple clusters of thunderstorms, but nothing showing any signs of development at this point. What's going on in Florida? Well, we have a weak upper low in here, which is interacting with a tropical wave, which stretches from Cuba southward into the Western Caribbean. And the bottom line for Florida, anyway, is a lot of tropical moisture, showers and storms, especially in the southern half of the state. And the shower and thunderstorm activity basically will be enhanced by this feature as it drifts across the southern half of the Sunshine State. Again, here's the southern extent of the tropical wave. You notice the thunderstorm activity not showing any signs of flaring up. Eastern Caribbean, great shape, maybe a late day storm on some of the islands, but right now it's very quiet with fair skies for the most part this morning. So with that in mind, we head to the eastern Atlantic and we continue to see these massive tropical waves, disturbances moving off the African continent. As they do so and they hit the cooler water, they tend to lose a lot of their thunderstorm activity. We'll be watching those systems as they drift west, but it would be many, many, many days down the road before something might develop, if and when something develops. So with that in mind, except for Darby, a quiet tropical scene, back to the States. Water vapor shows the very moisture-laden atmosphere here. Kansas and Missouri, this is where the tremendous rains have taken place overnight. There's a weak upper disturbance in here. There is a weak upslope flow, and there's just simply the battleground of the air masses in this region, where we have cooler, drier air to the north, clashing with a moisture-rich tropical atmosphere coming up from the south. Where those two air masses come together, that's where the showers and storms are enhanced. Back to that region shortly. First of all, Great Lakes and Northeast, for the most part, looking excellent on this Sunday with Canadian summer polar high pressure, the main weather story. Now, some of you will have some morning low clouds, but the tendency will be towards decreasing cloud cover. For those of you who wake up to some cloudiness, humidity, comfortable levels, and very pleasant summertime afternoon temperature readings. This morning, it's actually kind of crisp. Look at this, Elmira, 49 in Caribou, Maine, 61 in Detroit, still kind of warm along the eastern seaboard, 74 in D.C. and 72 in New York City. In the southern states, it's warm, it is steamy, it's 72 in Atlanta, but still 87 in Dallas, Fort Worth, headed for another day of 100-degree heat, the 21st day in a row, as a matter of fact. So hot, high pressure remains over Texas and most of Oklahoma. But this...
It's time you tried Cinnamon Grahams. Try the taste you've always loved. Do you have another box?
In the next half hour, Weather Center AM, a comprehensive national forecast. At 40 after, travel-wise with highway and air travel conditions. Then the weekend outlook. And at 50 after, Storm Watch with the tropical update. But right now, it's your local forecast on the Weather Channel.
and more flooding taking place as some areas have received over 6 inches of rain just this morning. We'll detail those areas coming up in just a few moments. But first, let's take a look at our tropical update. And starting that segment, we want to take an overview of what we have been watching. First, starting with the Gulf of Mexico, and everything is quiet there. No problems in the Gulf, even though climatologically this is a favored area this time of year for development, but we are not seeing anything happening at this time. An examination of the Caribbean shows a tropical wave here, and we also have one tropical wave now beginning to show just on the bottom of your screen, moving off the coast of Africa with a batch of showers and thunderstorms there. A closer look at the Gulf and also Florida as that tropical wave is now beginning to move across the coast of Florida. Showers and thunderstorms flaring up with it, thunderstorms being reported along the coast. This is interacting with an area of low pressure in the upper levels of the atmosphere. You can see the spin of the clouds with that. That low, along with the tropical wave, are moving off to the west at 15 miles an hour. And as long as this wave stays in the close proximity to the upper low, there's not much chance for this to develop any further. We have fairly strong winds moving across this, indicated by some of the cloud tops being sheared apart and moving off to the southeast. So again, not much chance of this developing further. What it is doing is bringing in moisture here to the southern coast of Florida. We've had reports of some water spouts off of West Palm Beach, and so you need to watch out for that. A special marine warning is in effect from Jupiter Inlet southward, and those thunderstorms are moving off to the west now, and they'll be moving into the interior areas over the next several hours and eventually reaching Fort Myers and also in Naples. Now behind that tropical wave, high pressure building in over the U.S. Virgin Islands. That's going to be steering away the thunderstorms for today, and no tropical systems moving in your direction in the Lesser Antilles or in Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic. Things will be fine for today. Lots of sunshine for you. Temperatures warming up in the 90s. We have been watching a swirl of clouds right here, showing up here on our visible satellite imagery, but on closer examination of that, no rain associated with those clouds. The clouds are kind of fizzling apart, not even much of a circulation here anymore. So very little chance of this developing, although we'll keep an eye on it for you here at the Weather Channel. Now moving to the coast of Africa, a couple of tropical waves continuing to push off to the west. A lot of room for them to work with. No signs of development at this point, but we will watch them closely as they will be moving under an area of high pressure in the upper levels of the atmosphere, and that scenario is conducive for formation, but at this point nothing getting its act together anytime soon. This time of year, throughout history, these are the areas that we have seen hurricanes and tropical storms develop, and we are beginning to see the development farther off into the Atlantic. Now this is the period from July 21st through the 31st where we have seen 37 storms form in the past 111 years in the Atlantic and also here in the Gulf of Mexico. The Caribbean, for the most part this time of year, has historically been very quiet. Quiet throughout July, that's not atypical, actually pretty common not to see too much happening this time of year. As we head toward August and also in September, that's where we have seen the peak of hurricane season in the Atlantic. In the Pacific, we have a hurricane right now, and that is Hurricane Darby. These are the latest coordinates on Darby at 16.3 north, 125.8 west, well away from land, at least any major landmass, over 1,000 miles away from Cabo San Lucas. The winds now, maximum sustained winds, are at 105 miles an hour as movement continues to be on the west at 14 miles an hour. We are seeing Darby move into cooler waters and will continue to weaken somewhat. Over the next 72 hours, the National Hurricane Center forecasting Darby to weaken considerably with maximum sustained winds down to about 45 miles an hour, continuing the westward motion, and that would put Darby about 800 miles to the east of Hawaii, but weakened considerably, which is good news for Hawaii. Here in the central portion of the United States, very heavy rainfall in the past 24 hours. Those showers and thunderstorms heading farther to the south. Some areas have received as much as 6 to 7 inches of rainfall, and we have evacuations taking place here in the central portion of Missouri, Crawford County, also Morgan County, Phelps County. You are under flood warnings. Flood watches are also in effect here as we do expect more rain this afternoon.